Experiencing an artist's journey is an incredible thing. You get to see their growth throughout the years as they slowly improve and come into their own style. You get to see them evolve. Look upon their earlier ideas and creations compared to their more recent works and say, damn, how can one person have this much creativity? And sometimes, you go backwards. Soul Eater and Fire Force, two anime created in the mind's eye of one Atsushi Okubo. One is a classic 2006 masterpiece with fun gags and characters and a pretty interesting story, and the other is Fire Force. Okay, that's a bit too harsh, because it's not like Fire Force is some unwatchable piece of shit, but it is a disappointing stepson when compared to the golden child that is Soul Eater. Soul Eater is a 2006 anime that follows Maka, Blackstar, Death the Kid, and their weapons on their journey to collect 99 Kishin souls and one Witch soul in order to turn the weapons into death sights to be used by the Grim Reaper. Fire Force, on the other hand, is a 2019 anime that follows Shinra and Fire Force Station 8 as they put out victims of spontaneous human combustion and fight against a cult that seeks to end the world through the cataclysm. Both are made from the same person with vastly different worlds and stories, but the problems with Fire Force specifically begin to arise when you start to compare the two. Soul Eater was this goofy show with a darker undertone that surfaced the longer you kept watching. Much of the comedy stemmed from the early 2000s shonen comedy in which, whoa, booby funny, haha. But when you look past that little hiccup, you get to see a very fun show with characters whose personalities are unapologetically pushed to the extreme. Blackstar is an assassin that is so overconfident and boastful to the point that he can never complete a mission. Death the Kid is one of the strongest characters in the walking embodiment of OCD. And then there's this character called Frankenstein, who's obviously just a reference to the gripping story of Frankenweenie. And this is only scratching the surface. The characters in Soul Eater are so much fun. They're so ridiculous that even when they're in a life-threatening fight, they can still crack jokes and do silly things because that's the framework that's been established for the show. Villains can be just as goofy as the characters, that even if jokes are made in the middle of fights, it never feels like it doesn't belong. But when shit gets serious, Soul Eater knows when to shut up and just let you enjoy the story and fight scenes for what they are. This cast feels so fleshed out despite their extreme personalities, and when you put them all together, it somehow balances out and makes sense. Characters that are introduced as comedic relief have pivotal roles in the later parts of the story, and what you think is a typical shonen story that's going to be about collecting 99 souls to become the Death Sight becomes a story of people trying to desperately stop the world from diving into insanity. And it does it with so much style. I adore the artwork and character designs of Soul Eater. It is so much fun, so interesting to look at, and the animation is fucking amazing for an anime that came out in 2006. Motherfuckers are struggling out here to get two PNGs to move correctly nowadays, and Soul Eater's animation was fucking killing it since '06. And it was such an amazingly strong show in manga. It was no wonder that people were excited when Fire Force came out in 2019. Fire Force chose to take a more serious approach in comparison to Soul Eater, and there is absolutely nothing wrong with that. The problem is that you have to make it good. Fire Force clearly wanted to become more like these new age shonen like Demon Slayer, My Hero Academia, Jujutsu Kaisen, but it couldn't let go of the worst aspects of older shonen, and instead becomes this strange amalgamation of a show that wants to take itself seriously, but still have room to constantly throw jokes around. Fire Force begins by trauma-dumping Shinra's tragic backstory to set the mood for what the rest of the series will look like. This isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it feels a little forced. His problems are presented before we get to know his character properly, because I guess it wants you to care about Shinra's character as soon as possible. Demon Slayer and Jujutsu Kaisen do this way better, by not just showing cryptic flashbacks, but showing in real time their tragedy and motivations. Shinra is also extremely basic in the way that he interacts with the world. Before, the typical shonen MC's personality was loudmouth, eats a lot, and is pretty dumb. And now he, like every other character, is becoming your I want to be a hero and feel sympathy for everyone type. It's been a trend with some MCs to take this approach, but I just can't get behind Shinra's fully because it just seems like a poor substitute for where his character should be. If that wasn't enough, they give him one of the dumbest character traits of all time. Shinra smiling when he gets nervous never contributes a single fucking thing to the story. It is a meager attempt to differentiate him from every other MC. Speaking of stupid characters and character traits, I didn't really like any of the characters here. Maki is supposed to be this muscular woman and is honestly the most tolerable character for me, even though she does have some fucking stinkers.
You got Excalibur too?
You should change the name to Excalibur.
Hinawa and Obi are just kind of boring to me and didn't really pique my interest, and their backstory didn't make me care about them any more than I already did. Arthur's whole shtick is that he's so unbelievably dumb and thinks he's a knight. It feels so out of place in this world and ruins a lot of moments that would be otherwise incredibly serious situations. It's almost never funny, but I do have to say that the only time I laughed in the entire show was when Arthur fought with his left hand and was getting his ass kicked until he remembered he was right-handed.
Wait a sec. I'm definitely right-handed. Why is Excalibur in my left hand?
And then there's Tamaki. Tamaki's whole character revolves around the fact that her clothes fall off her body, including her underwear. It happens so often and at the worst times that it ruins the tension in any scenes because wahoo! Boobies! It's so weird how often it happens and feels so insulting that you think the viewer can only pay attention to a scene if a girl's clothes are coming off. And also, bonk, go to horny jail and real jail. Fucking weirdo. And you may be like, well, that's a little hypocritical. Soul Eater had Blair and she was always naked. Yes, but she's a cat. Fire Force's characters are so weak and have the most forced and awkward relationships, and by the end of the first few episodes, they end up feeling like some weird Frankenweenie's monster of My Hero Academia and Fairy Tail characters. Soul Eater's characters felt like real friends. They had interpersonal relationships that didn't have to be outright told. Certain characters liked each other more than others, and they had genuine fights when their personalities clashed. It felt so fluid, you could see these characters mesh with each other in ways that are rarely done. But in Fire Force, these extreme personalities feel at odds with what's going on in the world and the story. And then there's the art style. Fire Force's art style feels so uninspired and bland. None of the character designs reflect their personalities in the least. While in Soul Eater, you could tell so much about the character just purely from their appearance. It seems like Atsushi wanted to modernize, and I mean that in the worst way possible. And the result is some of the most uninspired looking designs that I've seen in a while. The Fire Force officers all have the same lame uniform with blue stripes, while the evangelists have these white outfits that practically all look similar. I legitimately couldn't tell that these were made by the same person until I saw an Instagram post promoting Fire Force as such. There is so much to be said about how disappointing Fire Force is when compared to Soul Eater, but I got my biggest problems with it across. Sadly, Fire Force didn't have the balls to try something new, and instead decided to conform in the worst way possible. But it do got boobs, so 10 out of 10.